It is Monday, May 6th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very early get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. I managed to get through the biggest fight of the day, which is always trying to get up before 6 a.m. in the morning. But I did manage to overcome that obstacle, get over myself, and get to jiu-jitsu, even though I did not start at 6 a.m. when the class, or open mat rather, opened up. But I did get in there and put in a little time on the mat, and it was a lot of fun actually. Usually when I get there, it's almost like a private session. It's almost like a private lesson and whatnot. Because the other people that I'm with are usually higher ranking than I am, so it's catch up for me. Anyway, I was having a lot of trouble with one of the things we were trying to work, and it was a takedown with the same side lapel grab from the left hand, and there's this thing where you kind of sneak in. And you hook your left leg on the inside of your opponent's leg. Get a hook in there, and then kind of pivot twist and force the leg down and kind of into them, and that puts them down, right? But there was just this weird feeling I kept getting every time I get that hook behind the leg. I wanted to do something else. It was like I had this tendency to want to swing from my left hand that's got the lapel grab, right? And fling up with my left hand, my left foot, and kind of throw them, and I don't know, it's just something about the energy of the movement. It's like all the momentum is moving this way. There's absolutely no resistance for me to like bring my head under, to tuck my shoulder under and to pull my opponent over, but there's got to be a way to brace them in some way, because it seemed like my partners were able to negate me and get it back to a flattening side control without any issue whatsoever. So, like I said, it's got to be something in the footing. I gotta put my other foot on a hip, or I gotta put it on an ankle, or something where I've got another control point to drive my opponent's momentum, and get that full flip. But like I said, I could feel that when I was dropping my head down like that to get that leg on the inside, I don't know, it felt like, I should just keep going with this momentum, like, I should tuck and roll into my opponent, and pull them over at the same time. But like I said, for whatever reason, there was some glitch in it. It was just not letting it work. And then we did something really interesting. We were doing a transition from the back to a reverse leg triangle. And I thought this one was, an inverse or reverse, or I don't know, but the head's going out the wrong way or a different way or something. But the point was that we were having a lot of trouble with it, because it seemed like the way we were doing it, the gap between your calf and your thigh kept going over one of the sides of the carotid that you're trying to block off. And so I told one of my teammates, I'm like, you got to move it one way or the other. You got to adjust your hips one way or the other to where I'm either getting the hamstring across my carotid or I'm getting the calf across my carotid. But you do have to adjust your hips in order to manage that. And let me tell you, when he got that angle right, the whole side of my body started tingling. Because my arm's up over my head. It's literally tingling. I'm like, okay, yeah, tap. Don't knock me out here, because that's it. You got the angle. And so we kept working that for a little bit, and like I said, I think we finally kind of figured out the right hip angle to get at in order to secure that choke and close it out. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Again, the early times that I go in there for the early class, it always throws off the rest of my day. So I did myself a favor and took a small, very, very short nap right when I got home. Took a shower or whatnot, took a quick nap, got up, felt like $1,000,000. Still had kind of that herky-jerky, it's like, okay, I've gotten one of the things that I kind of almost dread at some level. I got one of those things done first thing in the day. So it's like, what else is there that's going to match that level of impact and intensity on my day? Probably not a whole lot. There's no other way to start the day than somebody trying to choke you or break your arm, right? But anyway, yeah, like I said, I had a lot of fun, and it was very constructive. The amount of time that we were able to dedicate to each move and whatnot seemed worth it, especially because it was only a couple of us this morning. So, like I said, not a whole lot of attention pool there. It's like one of us is doing something to the other person while the other person is watching and taking notes. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. I know that's kind of short for the update and whatnot, but for the most part, that's really what we did for an hour and change, was just work those two moves and over and over and over again. I love it. Need to do that like every day, at least a little bit, right? Anyway, like I was saying, I'll go ahead and throw down. And as far as what to start off with, I haven't done it in a while, so it's absolutely mandatory. And so here it is: Body Count, the ski mask way. First dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was Metallica with Eye of the Beholder. I used to say, and I still do kind of, that, because it's still true, his value is in the eye of the bag holder. Or the mind, rather, of the bag holder. Anyway, I was just checking something out here, and it's kind of interesting to me that I'm seeing a really vast discrepancy in price here. I gotta wonder exactly what the catalyst or reason for that is. I'm looking at the price for Bitcoin on CoinDesk, and they're currently reporting it at $58.94 right now. And on CryptoGlobe.com, it's reporting at $59.63. I don't know what exchange that's supposed to be representing. Let's see here. Is it showing us what exchange? No. It just says Crypto Compare Index. So, yeah, that's kind of weird. Anywho, as far as what we're going to get into today, I got a ton of stuff on the palette. Only so much time, so of course we're going to start off with NYAG, because that's kind of still on everybody's mind. What's going on there with Tether and whatnot. And it seemed to me there's actually some sort of connection between Blockstream and I believe it's either Tether or Bitfinex, one of the two. And I can't remember which one funded which is seed round, but it seemed to me there was some sort of assertion that their seed funding round came from their first seed funding round came from the same sources as Tether and iFinex and Bitfinex and all that. So it's kind of interesting there. Let's see if there's anything about that in here. I doubt there will be, but we can hope. Anyway, this is on CoinDesk.com. Judge asks NYAG to narrow the scope of amorphous Bitfinex document request. This is authored by Nicholas D, and it was authored on May 6, 2019. So yes, penis. The New York judge has ordered crypto exchange Bitfinex to turn over documents pertaining to the exchange's alleged cover-up of an $850 million loss and a subsequent loan from a stablecoin issuer Tether, but not immediately. The New York Supreme Court Judge Joel M. Cohen said during a Monday afternoon hearing that the preliminary injunction secured by the New York Attorney General's office at the end of April should remain in effect, at least in part, though he took issue with the scope. Attorneys for both plaintiff NYAG and respondents Bitfinex and Tether have a week to hammer out either a joint or individual proposal for what the scope of the injunction should be, which the judge will rule on. Cohen said, quote, "What I would suggest you both do is meet and talk about it. You seem like a reasonable group, and let's say a week either with a single or proposed revision that accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish here, and if you can't, with individual proposals." That being said, he added that he thinks that the preliminary injunction that we have right now is vague, open-ended, and not sufficiently tailored to be precisely what the AG has shown will cause imminent harm. I think it's both amorphous and endless. I'd happen to agree, I'm sure. As such, while he denied the motion with respect to vacating, staying, or modifying the order in terms of discovery and denied the motion with respect to vacating or staying the injunction in its entirety, he granted the motion to modify the, quote, substantive and temporal scope of the injunction. The injunction in question was filed on April 25th when the NYAG's office revealed that the exchange had borrowed nearly $1 billion from Tether's reserves after losing access to $850 million held by a payment processor, Crypto Capital. It was later revealed by federal prosecutors that Crypto Capital's operators had been indicted for bank fraud and its bank accounts were frozen. Under the terms of the injunction, Bitfinex and Tether were compelled to turn over all documents about these funding maneuvers as well as immediately cease any further borrowing. Attorneys for Bitfinex and Tether filed to either vacate or modify the preliminary injunction last week, saying that Bitfinex not being able to access Tether's funds is harmful to both the exchange and to the broader crypto market, a claim they repeated in another filing Sunday. For their part, New York Attorney General attorneys said that the injunction is, quote, narrow and would not have a significant impact on either Bitfinex or Tether's operations. I don't believe that. Jurisdictional questions. Left open Monday was the question of whether USDT, the dollar-pegged cryptocurrency issued by Tether, qualifies as a security, the outcome of which could also help determine whether NYAG's office has jurisdiction. Cohen said, quote, "The question of whether these are securities is a threshold question that the respondents mentioned. I know they are traded, but whether they qualify is another matter." Under the Martin Act, the NYAG's office can regulate securities and commodities, or the revenues where securities and commodities are traded, said David Miller, an attorney for Bitfinex. However, he said that USDT does not fulfill at least two prongs of the Howey test, the decades-old Supreme Court case often used to determine whether an instrument is a security or not. Specifically, there is no common enterprise, and there is no expectation of profit from those who purchase USDT, Miller said, adding, quote, "We have no fiduciary responsibility or otherwise with respect to Tether customers." I don't know, are you speaking on behalf of Tether, or are you speaking on behalf of Bitfinex, or anyway, continuing on. In speaking more broadly to Bitfinex and Tether's response to the NYAG, Cohen took a minute to acknowledge Tether's note that banks do not typically hold 100% of the funds their customers claim, saying, quote, "I recognize the point that banks do not have all of the dollars available at a moment's notice. I also recognize that you're not banks. You're not heavily regulated. Meaning you're not one of the mob already. John Castellanos, a lawyer with the New York Attorney General's office, argued that his office should have jurisdiction because New York's residents can purchase or trade USDT through the Poloniex platform and previously through Bittrex in secondary market sales. Moreover, he added, quote, "We have enough information to know, and we have every reason to believe that the Martin Act has been violated." Miller said Tether shouldn't be responsible for secondary market sales and that Poloniex did not promise USDT was backed 1-to-1. However, Cohen noted that the NYAG's office still needs to investigate the broader securities question, saying, quote, "As a law enforcement agency, it does not seem really out of bounds to just probe whether an otherwise unregulated business involves securities which are subject to the Martin Act." Miller also reportedly noted that Bitfinex promptly disclosed to the NYAG's office that its funds had been seized. The timeline for when the preliminary injunction would lift was not clarified just yet. Cohen noted that there are a number of issues to consider when picking a date for when the injunction would expire, including how long the NYAG's investigation would last for, as well as how much discovery there is. Well, I think maybe somebody might have recognized that this is pretty much a fishing expedition. You know, that they're trying to ferret out all of Tether and Bitfinex and iFinex's finances so they can seize it where they can. And this has been pretty much the way that the NYAG and the NYDFS have been acting. You know, first they put pressure on the banks that iFinex, Bitfinex, and Tether had with like Wells Fargo and so on. And, you know, it's like, what do you want these people to do? They're trying to run a cash business. They need access to liquid cash capital. There are only so many sources of those, and if banks don't want to be it, they're going to do what they got to do to try and accomplish that liquidity issue. Take care of that liquidity issue, including borrowing it from less than reputable people, such as cocaine dealers that like to launder their money and need vehicles in which to do it. And not saying that anything of the sort really happened here. I couldn't tell you. I wasn't there. But what I can say is this, that none of this would be happening if bankers would just do their fucking job and maintain the access to my checking and my savings accounts, and, you know, and keep an eye that there's no actual quote-unquote fraudulent activity going on, of course, and that there's no hacking going on and all that. You know, they're supposed to be operating as a custodian of your funds. They're not supposed to be acting as the fucking CIA and the NSA and, you know, their own arm of whatever they consider justice to be, whatever standards they establish for themselves to enforce on others. That's not really their role. You know, this is one of the problems with associating the Treasury directly with our banking system. Because the banking system is pretty much run by private entities. There's this big old wall of mystery because they're private entities. And, you know, it's one of the things that really bugs me about all of this is that we're talking about at most $2, maybe $3 billion. Maybe at most. But the NYAG is throwing the fucking hammer at iFinex, Bitfinex, and Tether because they're not part of the little gang. You know, they don't have the bit license. They don't have the permission of the NYDFS to operate and to do business with anybody in the state of New York. And they've gone pretty much above and beyond with regard to avoiding any kind of real compliance And so, my gosh, we got to throw the NYAG's office at them and draw those motherfuckers into compliance. And here's the thing that bothers me about it the most, is that I never asked for it. And I'm not saying that as, I'm so important that my opinion should matter above everybody else. It's this, that I got into cryptocurrencies specifically because it wasn't regulated. Did you hear that? Specifically because it is not regulated. And as far as I can tell, will be as easy to regulate as pirated fucking cable channels. And that's the reality of it. And so, it's like, when I see people saying things like, oh, you're not regulated enough, fuck you. That's basically, you haven't paid for the little permission slip from my office. You haven't given me my bribe, my cut, my kickback that says you can do business. I mean, really, if you don't want people to think that you're a mafia or that you're a criminal organization, you might stop fucking acting like it. There's more shadow banking and fraudulent activity going on Wall Street every fucking millisecond than there is in the entire history of crypto. And I know that's a bit of an exaggeration. Maybe it takes a minute for that much fraud to happen, but it still is fucking happening. And just because they can make it smell like legitimate activity does not make it legitimate activity. It passes all the little reports, it passes all the little smell tests, everybody happy. And I'll tell you right now, those that think that adding blockchain to it is going to stop it, they're fucking blowing smoke up their own ass. Because the people that are going to be abusing the market are going to be the fucking nodes that are producing the blocks on this blockchain. So it's in their interest to distort the material and data they're in. This is why we have public, ad hoc, fucking volunteer network miners out there. Because there's no one entity saying you must support these BIPs, you must version of the software, you must support these transactions. No. There's the Bitcoin protocol, and then there are BIPs that are, for the most part, voluntary. So if they don't want to support your SegWit transactions, some miner could just say, you know what, I'm not going to support anything past BIP 9, or actually before BIP 9. So like BIP 7, that's like the last one we're going to support. Everything else can go fuck itself. And maybe one or two that don't have any dependence on SegWit. But that's it. So things like maybe a block size increase. Or maybe even Bitcoin Unlimited. You never know. But this is another aspect that kind of makes the idea of quote-unquote building on top of Bitcoin, or any other cryptocurrency for that matter, to be completely stupid. Because basically you're zoning somebody else's marsh to build a skyscraper on. It's not even your fucking marsh. It's somebody else's marsh. And you're like, oh, that patch of quicksand looks like a really good spot to put this fucking high-rise building on. And no, you're wrong. Because you're going to start your foundation and all that, and you're going to start building. And then all of a sudden, somewhere down the line, there may be a potential disruption. You might be building your shit on top of shit that nobody really, really wanted. But it was kind of like turkey stuffed in there, and that later on, people say, you know what? We really didn't want this shit. Let's go ahead and get rid of this shit. I don't want to mine this shit anymore. And there goes your foundation. And I know it's not that simple, and some people are like ripping their hair out and whatever, but the sentiment is true. And the reality is there, that building on top of other people's work is not the greatest policy. Maybe in retrospect, but not as it's happening. Because again, it can change. Things are subject to change here, and the factors of change are so many in number. New hardware, new firmware, new locations. All of this shit is up in the air, and you have no idea which one is going to strike next. So the idea that you're going to be able to lay some really secure cement and do something really, really dynamic on top of other people's work, I think it's a lot less likely than you'd imagine. We've seen plenty of movements in crypto that, for whatever reason, it just didn't really pick up on Bitcoin. Now, it could have been due to temporary pressure that will probably change over time. But, consider it in the context of what I was talking about earlier with the possible connection here between Bitfinex, Tether, and Blockstream. Consider, if the NYAG manages to somehow or another irreparably damage Bitfinex or Tether, they will end up taking out Blockstream. I think, anyway. I don't think there'll be enough of the OGs or whatever that'll want to hang around after they can't get paid. It's that same problem of being a dictator. Eventually your military wants to get rid of you because you can't pay them. You go through the hyperinflation spiral, and all of a sudden their paychecks aren't worth anything, and they're looking at you as a source of meat, not as a source of revenue. That's about the long and short of it. And I think that they're going to be going with open arms to the likes of Goldman Sachs and whatnot to wedge in the BIPs that they want. They've already shown that they have enough political capital to get the miners and keep the miners listening to them, even in the face of a lot of loss. I mean, when you look at that mempool and you see it climb above the normal processable amount of transactions, where it's getting like 10, 20, 30,000 transactions, that's a lot of revenue that's being lost there, that's being held on the sidelines for no reason other than the fact that they don't want to increase the block size limit. That's it. If you change that one factor, we could flush that entire memory pool and have room left over each 10-minute block. And we know we wouldn't have to do gigabyte blocks in order to achieve that. I mean, there just isn't enough traffic on the network for that. And I don't imagine there would be. For one thing, it's not really necessary for that much that much volume to be available in order to draw the price down for it to be sub-penny again. If you even went up to 16 megabytes, you could get it down. You could get it down below a penny for a transaction fee. And speaking of cheap transaction fees, I got this article here on Crypto Globe, and I just couldn't discard it only because it exemplifies exactly what I'm talking about here. Mysterious Bitcoin whale moves $230 million for 57 cents with Bitcoin. And this is by Francisco Memoria. My apologies there, Francisco. But clearly, yes, penis. And this was authored May 6th, 2019. So today. And here we go. A mysterious Bitcoin whale has recently made a 40,000 Bitcoin transaction that only cost 0.0001 BTC. This means that to move nearly $230 million worth of cryptocurrency, the whale only paid a 57-cent transaction fee. According to blockchain data, the funds were moved out of an address using the segregated witness SegWit protocol, as it starts with BC1, to add another address using the protocol. SegWit was introduced back in 2017 to help improve the efficiency of Bitcoin transactions. On social media, some have theorized the transaction was carried out by a popular Bitcoin Talk user known as Loaded, who's known for having a whopping 40,000 Bitcoin stash. The small amount paid in fees to move such a large amount of Bitcoin to some proves the flagship cryptocurrency has a real use case, as it can help people save a lot of money on cross-border transactions. Moreover, who exactly conducted the transaction isn't clear, as Loaded has neither confirmed nor denied any involvement. This proves money can be moved safely, anonymously, and nearly for free, taking into account nearly $230 million were moved. Interestingly, the 57-cent transaction fee could be above what was required. This, as data shared by Bitcoin education and consultancy organization BitConsultants has suggested most Bitcoin users are overpaying for their transaction fees. As there is so much mismatch between fees required for specific transactions and the ones users are paying. The firm's data showed that as of last month, various transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain were overpaying for fees, with some transactions being over 3 times what the recommended fastest and cheapest amount of Satoshis per byte. Notably, the whale's $230 million transaction came at a time in which Stephen D. Paley, a partner at Anderson Kill, a US-based law firm, recently claimed cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin can be effective at solving problems with micropayments. Whatever. Here we go. This wasn't a micropayment or a nano payment. This was a mega payment. And, again, Bitcoin does have that purpose of money, of being money. And it's the one thing that all of these monkeys will downplay the most about Bitcoin. But here it is, writ large, what a fucking miracle Bitcoin is by comparison to the legacy banking infrastructure that we have today. I mean, you name them. I don't care who they are. Name one. They could not have moved $230 million with this little amount of friction. There would have been permission slips needed. There would have been 6 month notification processes to go through to make sure that the bank had $230 million to ship from one place to another, or at least had the balances on the book to wire it somewhere else. But it would have been in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to move $230 million, according to the conventional / legacy payment systems. And this kind of came up earlier, where someone was talking about the individual states and all their licensure and all that bullshit. And I've been thinking about this as like a good thing, bad thing kind of thing. That, say in Wyoming, you are a Lightning Network node operator, right? And maybe you don't move a lot of money, but what you're doing does kind of qualify as money transmission in the state, right? Well, rather than going after you on an individual guns and boots kind of way, I think they would go through your USP or your ISP rather, and attack you there. If not your banking as well. But as far as that is concerned, I don't really see Lightning as being an advantage here, because it would have been more than one transaction fee just to move this amount, and worse yet, there isn't enough fucking volume in the entire fucking Lightning Network mesh to handle this one transaction. There aren't enough people hosting enough money to do this one transaction. And yet the Bitcoin network was able to do it on chain. And relatively cheaply. I'd be glad to move 230 million bucks for 57 cents. That's just fucking incredible. And you know what they don't even mention here is the time differential. Like I said, if you want to move that much money, I don't care if you're fucking Donald Trump. If you want to move that much money, you got to like talk to the manager of the bank and be like, yo, I want to be moving my money from here to there, and so I need it, in 6 months from now. That I don't know that that's exactly how much lead time they need, but they do need lead time, and I want to say it's like, I think I've read it somewhere, it's like 45 days or some shit like that, for anything over $10 million or some outrageous amount, that the amount of time differential between that and this transaction is, it's incalculable in business terms. Just in time savings alone. I mean, you're talking about an indefinite period of a minimum of 72 hours that they have to fiddle fuck around with your $230 million, getting it from one place to another. And as far as wire transfers are concerned, I'm pretty sure those have a 10-day window. So that's like 10 days where you're worrying, is my transaction going to be one of the 33% transactions that always fail internationally? Am I going to have to wait another 10 days for the FDIC to refund my money and then ship it back out again? What the fuck? But no. This transaction probably cleared within 3 hours, tops. Even with a bloated fucking network, it probably cleared within 3 hours. 3 hours, 72 hours. You see the differential there? That's years in business time. And time is money. Every minute you're in operation in a business, you're paying somebody to continue doing something. And so that 72 hours, or let's do some math, 69 hours that you could have saved is completely wasted. That's one work week. That's plus overtime. That's damn near 2 work weeks, i.e. 10 days. That's a fucking year differential between 3 hours and 10 days. And if you really take into account like how many intermediaries there are in between you and your money, and it's being transacted from point A to point B, how many sets of hands are involved? How much regulation is involved? How much security is involved? And people with armor, armor and fucking guns. All of that shit costs money. And you got to make it somewhere. So you're going to be making it on your transaction fees. So again, I'm telling you right now that $230 million transaction, were it to be done in legacy finance, would have probably cost over $1 million to move from A to B. And that's not even including any kind of taxation or additional fees or additional levies, and they're out there. They're out there. As a matter of fact, I got this other one about a similar transaction, and equally as mysterious. This one's on ambcrypto.com by Namrata Shukla. And judging from her picture and her name, I'm going to say no penis. Bitcoin to undergo correction before and after reaching $6,500 mark, claims expert trader. What? Is this the right one? Damn it! I had a article here about 6,500 other fucking Bitcoin being moved. I guess not. Man. Well, here. This one's just as good. It's on gizmodo.com.au. Australia bans cash for all purchases over $10,000 starting in July of 2019. This is by Matt Novak. And it was authored too long ago for us to even talk about. was authored May 12th, 2018, almost a full year. Well, shit. Yeah, almost a full year ago. 6 days, it'll be a year. But we're going to do it anyway because this thing is, according to what I can see on the title of this, it's supposed to go into effect in 2 months. Continuing on. Australia's Liberal Party government has announced that it will be soon illegal to purchase anything over $10,000 with cash. The government says it's, quote, encouraging the transition to a digital society and cracking down on tax evasion. But not everyone is happy with the move. Quote, this will be bad news for criminal gangs, terrorists, and those who are just trying to cheat on their tax or get a discount for letting someone else cheat on their taxes, Treasurer Scott Morrison said in a speech announcing the government's, quote, new budget. It's not clever, it's not okay, it's a crime. The ban starts on the 1st of July 2019, and any payment over $10,000 will have to be made by check or debit/credit card. The government will enforce the measure by allocating roughly $300 million for what it calls the Black Economy Standing Task Force. The goal is to drum up about $3 billion in new tax revenue over the next 4 years. Yeah, that's going to fail. As The Guardian points out, one of the biggest targets for the new task force will be the illicit tobacco trade. Australia has the highest tax on cigarettes in the world, with an average pack costing around $40. Holy shit! But there's a huge black market for cigarettes, which comes from both stolen goods and smuggling from outside the country. Taxes aren't paid on cigarettes until the point of sale, so the theft from tobacco warehouses is unusually common for Australia. Australians have a strange relationship with cash, strange in the sense that they still use it. Roughly 37% of all commercial transactions in Australia are made using cash. That number is just 32% in the US and 15% in Sweden. Many Swedes are angry about its slow move to a cashless society, arguing that going completely digital causes security concerns. Absolutely it does. And India began phasing out a whopping 86% of its currency in November of 2016 by invalidating 500 and 1,000 notes as legal tender. But there are also regional quirks that make the Australian government more prone to crack down on cash. For instance, it's almost impossible to find a $100 note in circulation in Australia. The Reserve Bank of Australia still prints the $100 bill. Where do they go? The rarity of the $100 note, nicknamed the Kermit for its green color, is attributed to both massive hoarding overseas as well as being the preferred method of payment for organized crime in Australia. Some Australian economists have even floated the idea of phasing out the Kermit, but there's been significant pushback from the public. I'd imagine so. While the ban on cash purchases over $10,000 may not seem like a big deal for the average person, plenty of small businesses are upset about the plan. Quote, it's going to screw me. 95% of my business's cash collections, Paul Thomas, owner of Commander Security Services in Sydney, told News Corp this week. Quote, on a monthly basis, we could process up to $4 to $5 million, either picking up cash, processing processing and EFTing it to customers' accounts, or recarrying it from customers to their bank's branch. Today it's any sum over $10,000 in Australia, but anyone with their eyes open can see where this is going. We should expect governments to move away from cash over the next decade. Just as currency anarchists continue to insist that cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, are the real future. Researchers in the 1970s predicted that a widespread debit card system would be the perfect surveillance tool. And they weren't exactly wrong. What they didn't predict was what happens when a completely digital economy gets hacked. Equifax's recent loss of so much personal data on virtually half of all Americans could feel like just a prelude to many more snafus to come. And I'd just like to add on that note, that one wasn't shit. That hack was not jack shit. It impacted 1 out of 3 Americans, but you know what? The fucking Marriott hack is worse. That one went for 4 years. The fucking Equifax hack went on for, I think it was a year and a half. It was 18 months. The Marriott hack went for 4 years. They had unfettered access to all of the customers' data, their fucking banking information, their fucking biometric information, their bank access, their email address, their physical address, their phone number, their eye color, their fucking hair color, their weight, everything, their eating habits, their shopping habits, their Facebook accounts, all their social media accounts, all their pictures, everything. 800 million people. That's 1 out of 10 people on this fucking planet. Not in this country, on this planet that had their shit hacked. And all because there's all this insistence on monitoring everything, but not bothering to fucking secure it. It's not going to be too much longer that this horrible lapse in fucking personal data security is going to cause some real shit. I mean like real shit, where like people start getting murdered and people start getting targeted for their accounts to get robbed and shit like that. Protect your own bunghole, people, because I'll tell you what, the people collecting all this data on you, they don't seem to give a fuck about that. So you got somebody's got to do it. It's got to be you. It's got to be you, man. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. A little bit of Death Clock here. Awaken here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with 0 Days. Yeah. And going forward, got a few other little tidbits on this same kind of track. There's always this question of like what our interest is in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and I think it's the question that makes people misdiagnose things so much about when they're trying to evaluate what Bitcoin is or how it should work. And so I got this article here on ambcrypto.com. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies should be shut down, claims Nobel Prize winner Joseph Stiglitz. This is by Akash Athawasai. My apologies, sir. But yes, clearly from the picture, penis. This is authored on May 6, 2019. Joseph Stiglitz, winner of the 2001 Nobel Prize in Economics, is of the opinion that cryptocurrencies should be, quote, shut down. While contending that digital payment systems are the way of the future, the economist does not believe that decentralized currency is part of this trend. In a recent interview with CNBC, the author of The Price of Inequality stated that electronic payment systems, coupled with a regulated economy, can help central banks like the Federal Reserve in formulating their macroeconomic strategy. He added that this dichotomy can help curb, quote, illicit activities peddled by the cryptocurrency industry. Dude, that's why we want them. You don't seem to understand. We are the market. Continuing. Stiglitz added that he was, quote, disturbed by the overwhelming attention given to cryptocurrencies because of the industry's dilution of transparency and emphasis on privacy and anonymity. In his words, quote, it disturbs me a great deal that the attention that was given to cryptocurrencies because those were moving things off a transparent platform into a dark platform. No, asshole. No, wrong. We're converting them from a opaque platform to a transparent platform. As noted earlier, we just watched a transaction for $230 million get completed for 57 cents. That's a level of transparency none of your fucking employers have ever offered us. Continuing on. Several channels of illicit financial activities like money laundering scams and frauds often debilitate the financial system and cause loss of global wealth. Who cares? It's mostly the banks doing it anyway. The economists' remedy to make the economy, quote, more efficient is to, quote, move to more of an electronic payment mechanism. Like, that's really going to help you, dude. Electronic means it can be shifted as quickly as any other piece of digital media. However, he contends that the key is to find the correct balance between transparency, spearheaded by regulation, and the absence of the, quote, surveillance state. Oh, whoa. Here it is, you're talking about how wonderful it would be if all of the transactions could be monitored by the Federal Reserve and they can monkey around with their machinations, but you don't want the surveillance state. Tell me, what is the purpose of them knowing every single transaction and being able to do all of their little machinations without the necessity to maintain a surveillance state? I mean, if there's no surveillance state, then you don't have to keep track of everything. You see how that goes? Kind of thing? Anyway, continuing. A surveillance state encroaches on freedom and is one of the main reasons why decentralized currency was born, he argued. Good man. Speaking with reference to the possibility of a digital dollar, which in the cryptocurrency world is a stable coin, the economist stated that with the, quote, stable functioning of the U.S. dollar, cryptocurrencies are not the answer. Quote, we have a very good currency so far. The currency has been run in a very stable way. There's no need for anyone to go to a cryptocurrency. Wrong. Apparently he does not look at that chart that shows you the amount of value, the amount of face value that the U.S. dollar has lost in its existence. Continuing on. The acclaimed economist concluded by stating, quote, that the attributes that one could confer to a, quote, good currency are present in the U.S. dollar and not in cryptocurrency, following which he called for the shutdown of the $180 billion industry. Actually, it's far more than that, dude. You're only counting, like, maybe counting the coin value or whatever, but I'm sure it's worth far more than $180 billion. You know, it's funny that Mr. Stiglitz should actually recognize the advantages of cryptocurrencies and yet point to them with some sort of derision and say that the Federal Reserve should be running everything. I'm sure an economist and an economist of his caliber should be able to recognize that the last several financial calamities have actually been caused by the Federal Reserve's manipulation of the cash value of the value of cash on the market. And again, as an economist, a Nobel Prize winning economist, he should be able to recognize that cryptocurrencies are actually a response to the inequality that he's talking about. And that, of course, the inequality is being exacerbated by the fact that the Federal Reserve controls who gets to win and who gets to lose. I mean, really, you got to put blinders on to have that level of disassociation and not really understand what cryptocurrencies mean for people. Understand that for me to get a bank account, I have to provide several articles of personal identification, compromise that to the bank, and allow them to do all kinds of FBI and DOJ checks on me and all that other bullshit. I subject myself to a great deal of personal risk that I don't actually have to do. You know, if I wanted to do the same thing or an equivalent in cryptocurrencies, I would download a wallet, a good one, of course, preferably for the cryptocurrency in question, and I would set up a computer as a miner and make it part of somebody's network and mine. Because now I am the bank. I've taken the bank out of this whole money creation issue. You know, where my money come from? It come from my miner. My miner make my money. You know, and again, because that level of participation has not been emphasized for the vast majority of Bitcoin's life, and the lives of most cryptocurrencies for that matter, I think that's the only reason why we have people like Mr. Stiglitz, as knowledgeable and knowing as they are, making such terrible calls with regard to what should happen with cryptocurrencies and what role they actually play in our economy. I mean, I'm sure if Mr. Stiglitz had set up a few miners and watched the process going on and the money going into his wallet, he would suddenly understand, especially if he were to, say, open an article here to AMB Crypto and be reading that, and or better yet, a Coinbase article, or CoinDesk rather. They typically have the prices off on the right-hand side of the screen there, and so, you know, if the coin that he's mining happens to be, say, Litecoin or maybe Ethereum, he'll see the price for it in US dollars, and he'll say, I'm participating in that. I'm mining that. I'm part of that. That's a product of my work. That's a product of the computers that I got humming away in the background here, making the fucking room so hot. You know, that's a product of my effort, of my contribution. Without my contribution, it would be less secure. When you can say those things about a currency that is transacted globally, suddenly your role on this planet is much different than if you're a simple consumer utilizing the US dollar to facilitate all of your transactions. There you're just a fucking record on some credit card ledger. You know, Visa's got some record of your transaction, and that's about as transparent as it's going to get. The only time it ever gets more transparent for you is when they're sending you some sort of notification that you've been overdrawn, either by your own fault or by somebody else getting access to your credit card information. And that's it. Then things get really transparent. They start telling you what interest rate they're going to impose on you, what kind of fees they're going to impose on top of that overdraft fee, and on top of the hole you put in your fucking Visa card account. You know, they're real happy to get transparent then, but, you know, say when it comes to the order of the transactions that they actually process, not necessarily the order they were received in, but the order that they chose to process them in, that's not transparent. That's fucking opaque. If those transactions were happening across the Bitcoin network, we'd know exactly how they were counting the transactions. We would be like, no, you see this one right here? I actually deposited that one with them at this time, and they held it up until this time, and they processed it along with this transaction and this transaction. If you look back on the record here on the blockchain, you can see the original transaction. You know, you see what I'm saying? It's like, you can't go back and re-edit the fucking blockchain to match your supposed ordering of the transactions, unless of course you pre-ordered them on your side, batched the transactions, and then forwarded them to the blockchain. Then of course you could put your customers in arrears with a little bit of creative math behind the scenes, and of course that in itself would be very, very opaque as well, and entirely trust-based. This is why I insist that we stick with doing transactions on the blockchain, because it takes out all the fucking mystery there. It goes away. Either the transaction is in the block, or there's been a fucking block reorg, and you gotta fucking notify somebody that a transaction that you did with them may actually be involved in it, and we're not entirely certain about what the funds are right now. But you would at least have the tools available to provide that kind of notification. You would have the tools available to notify you that such an instance was happening. And probably in a little more transparent way than, again, any bank would ever give you. it's in their business it's in their best interest rather to run you into the wall, and they do it all the time. I was in business. I had it happen to me several times where they would be really selective about when they chose to process my deposits versus my withdrawals. And I can assure you, all of the withdrawals for a certain period of time happened before any of the deposits. I was getting run into the wall constantly by them. And again, at no fault of my own. You know, they were using that 3-day business window and just clump all the transactions that happened in that. And, oh yeah, you know, your transaction came out on this day, but you know, of course it was 2 hours after I had already done a deposit, but that's okay. It's going to come out before the deposit does and run me in arrears and run me up against the wall again. And see, those are the kind of abuses that they are actually allowed to do. That's like, can be considered part of their business plan. It's a legitimate business plan according to all of the regulatory agencies involved. But you conducting a transaction for somebody else, and all of a sudden, they want to throw the book at you for all kinds of shit. You know, money transmitter license, custodial license, all this other bullshit. You know, oh, you're not a licensed MSB. You got to do some time in jail, bud. Goldman Sachs commits a multi-billion-dollar fraud. Oh, we slap on the wrist, $200 million fine, and everybody's happy. You know, never mind that they made all kinds of money on it, and never mind the money that it cost other people. It's all good. Somebody got their cut, everybody happy. Anyway, as much doom and gloom as I talk about Bitcoin on this show, as much as I love Bitcoin, and you know, I really do. It helps to mention the fact that there are other currencies out there, and they're making attempts to make inroads where Bitcoin is kind of lagging behind, or at least not being able to do the job as efficiently or as cheaply. And so here it is on cryptodaily.co.uk. How did Dash become so international? And this is by Adrian Barkley, and going by the picture, either a really young guy or a girl who wishes she was a guy. Let's check. Adrian Barkley, blah, 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 blah. He. So yes, penis. I'm just going by, I'm taking their word for it. Dash, it's a cryptocurrency you've heard about, and you may have even have a few stashed away in the nether region of your cryptocurrency wallet, though the chances are this is a cryptocurrency that you don't know an awful lot about. Dash is one of the biggest cryptocurrencies in the world. Its reputation is regularly undermined as Dash is a privacy-focused cryptocurrency, so it does seem some level of resistance from those in the crypto community that aren't about an all-inclusive anonymity. I don't know who isn't about that in cryptocurrencies, by the way. If they're not about that, they're probably some banker anyway, and I really don't care what they have to say. Dash, or digital cash, was created by Evan FUD-filled, according to CoinSultra. Quote, Dash was originally released as Xcoin, XCO. In February of 2014, the name was changed to Darkcoin, and on 25th March 2015, Darkcoin was rebranded as Dash. Evan FUD-filled came across Bitcoin in 2010 and was impressed by its technology, but he soon realized that Bitcoin was not private and fast enough. He had many ideas on how to make Bitcoin anonymous, but he knew that Bitcoin's core developers wouldn't allow him to do so, as the core code would need to be changed for this. So, to change this primary drawback from Bitcoin, Evan decided to use Bitcoin's core code to build his own cryptocurrency. This is what we know of today as Dash. Now, with a huge international reach, Dash is one of the world's most adopted cryptocurrencies and always seems to have a significant level of power within financial crises. Looking at Venezuela, for example, now one of the biggest users of Dash in the wake of their recent financial crash. Turkey, during the turmoil surrounding the Turkish lira, Dash saw a large wave of adoption and continues to grow. As a matter of fact, Dash seems to be a bit of an international legend with a passport that allows it to operate whenever it wants. It's the privacy behind Dash that allows the cryptocurrency to be found during times of need. The international spread of Dash is thanks to its accessibility, its stable-ish price, and its ability to protect those who use it. When governments are trying their best to stabilize broken economies, they don't want citizens to start pumping their money elsewhere, and therefore a fear exists that those found to be protecting their money could face repercussions at a later date. Dash, on the other hand, gives citizens facing financial turmoil the chance to protect their money in an anonymous format. Moreover, Dash is also well adopted by merchants, both online and in brick-and-mortar stores. Again, using Venezuela as an example, lots of businesses began to accept Dash payments for traditional services in the wake of the financial crisis, encouraging those around the stores to also start investing in Dash. Dash has also become an international symbol of cryptocurrency, and it's all down to DeField's original vision of an anonymous and private cryptocurrency. It's a liberating force and one that continues to grow. Bitcoin isn't as anonymous as a lot of people think it is. Pseudonymous. And one of the cool things about Bitcoin is that you don't necessarily have to tell it the truth about things like who you are, where you live, what your IP address is, so on and so forth, in order for the transaction to complete. And that's cool that Dash is also, I guess, somehow protected in this way as well. But there are also other cryptocurrencies that fit this bill. There's Verge for one, and there's also Monero, and I think Zcash as well. But they're all focused around the idea that you are the person that should be monitoring your transactions and taking care of your transactions, and it's really no concern of anybody else what you're doing. Anyway, continuing on, I got a couple other things I wanted to go through here. Let's see, BTC and Stiglitz, and Dash became international, yeah. No, where the hell was it? DOS. Ooh, that was Zero Cash. Apparently, they've got some sort of threat of a DOS attack, or they are being DOS attacked. I'm not entirely sure what that was. Let's see, Copenhagen ceases. Regulators ready. Yeah, whatever. And we already covered this one. Nobel Prize Stiglitz. Down night. Oh, that's a big one too. Might actually cover that. I had a whole bunch of these that I was kind of stashing away. Yeah, here we go. This one's kind of interesting. I'm going to hydrate here. I'll be right back. That was good H2O. Anyway, this is on BitcoinExchangeGuide.com, and I want to check and verify, make sure it isn't from somewhere else, because I'm not sure if it's these guys or somebody else's, some big aggregator, and they keep doing that to me, where they only put like part of the article in, and then they skip to, if you want to read more of this, it's from the site. Anyway, continuing on. This is by Carl T., authored May 6, 2019. BitTorrent sees over $1 million worth of transaction, a $1 million worth transaction, 1.65 billion BTT, moved to Binance's exchange. An unknown user has just transferred 1.65 billion BitTorrent tokens to a Binance wallet on May 5th. Binance is one of the most popular cryptocurrency exchanges in the market, with one of the largest number of trading pairs in the space. 1.65 billion BTT is currently worth about $1.04 million. Crypto Whale moves 1.65 billion BTT. The sender decided to move 1.65 billion BTT on May 5th, even when the account had just 0.1 TRX. Therefore, the receiver has around 280 million in Tron, which is one of the most popular digital currencies in the market. At the same time, the receiver had a large number of BTT tokens as well. They have 39.11 billion BTT and other tokens as well. BitTorrent is a TRC10 token that is based on the Tron network and that aims at helping the BitTorrent network to improve its services. BitTorrent is the world's largest decentralized application around the world. At the moment, the token is listed on a few exchanges in the crypto space, including Binance, Bittrex, OKX, Huobi, HitBTC, and many others. This shows that BTT has an important presence in the market as well. The token was launched a few months ago on the Binance Launchpad platform as an initial exchange offering, IEO, and it was able to gather the attention of many investors in the space. Indeed, the token was sold in just a few minutes after the token sale started. Currently, BitTorrent is the 49th largest digital currency in the market, with the price per coin at 0.000624 cents. It also has a market capitalization of $132.35 million. As many other IEOs, the price of the digital currency skyrocketed after it was released to the market, but a few weeks later, selling pressure dragged the price of the virtual currency down. Yeah. That's kind of interesting. Apparently a whole bunch of it got moved. But it's one of those things where, the BitTorrent, I think this one is going to kind of run aground as far as its expectations are concerned. I would expect people to switch over to other torrenting services other than BitTorrent, specifically to avoid the association with BitTorrent token. And the reason I say that is because BitTorrent token is supposedly going to be used to pay for better places in the queue for downloading stuff. I don't expect that it'll go very long before all kinds of owners of copyrighted material are going to be barking up their ass saying, "Give me my fucking cut. Give me my money. You're monetizing my media. You're monetizing my work. Give me my paper." And not only that, I think what's going to end up happening with it is that they either do or they're going to have all of their little clients doing their mining. They're shadow mining or fucking cryptojacking or whatever going on in the background, and you not knowing anything about it and you not being rewarded for it. And not necessarily all of the activity is going to be restricted to BitTorrent transactions. It is going to be a digital medium and a digital medium network. So chances are people will utilize it for other purposes. I mean, we've already seen plenty of cases where in-game money has been abused to launder millions of dollars. So the idea that BitTorrent's network would be any less prone to that kind of utilization, I don't think so. Not in the least. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And we ended that last one with a little bit of prong. I think we can go Rivers of Nile this time. The Silent Life. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Self-Bias Resistor by Fear Factory. Gosh, kind of wish I had one of those. Make sure I'm not drinking my own Kool-Aid. Anyway, I had a couple on here that I wanted to get through tonight just because, it's along the kind of thing that we've been talking about. If I could just locate it again. And your prosecutors demanding transparency. No, that's not it. I had a series of them here. We already covered that one. Not want to cover that one. Don't want to cover that one. Not yet. No, not that. Neo-fascism in Silicon Valley. I swear. Some people have just such big miscalls with this shit. And that's not where we wanted to go. That's not where we wanted to go. Come on, where did I find that? I just had it here a moment ago, and that's the problem with multi-tab browsing. Is if you go too far, you have too many tabs open. You can't really see where they are and what they're about, and it's not good. It's not good at all. Although we might cover the last one that I just. Ooh. And we may cover this one too. It's pretty spiff. I might have to do that one because it's the last one on here. No, it wasn't Exodus Wallet. No, it wasn't the Pentagon's Long Con or even Agora. Damn it, Jim. I wish I had just another song or two. I've been trying to cut the music a little bit shorter than I had been. Only because I felt like 7 songs. It's kind of getting a lot out there into boredom zone, It's like, are you still there? Oh, where did I put that thing? Oh, here we go. Apparently, Fidelity is going to be opening up a new cryptocurrency service in a couple of weeks. Now, so far, we've seen that multiple legacy entities have tried to get into the whole Bitcoin trading thing. There's ICE with their backed thing, although theirs is based on futures contracts and are supposed to actually cash out in Bitcoin as opposed to US dollar or like alternatives or some sort of like pegging device or whatever. I'm not entirely sure how they intended to do that valuation and whatnot, but they're supposed to pay out in actual Bitcoin as opposed to US dollars, which a lot of the current quote-unquote futures contracts do. I'm Italian, what do you want? Got a bowl of spaghetti sitting right in front of me. Could not resist. Anyway. So here it is. Fidelity's new cryptocurrency service will launch within weeks. This is by Max Moeller. It was authored on May 6th, 2019. Continuing. Fidelity Investments, the Wall Street group worth $7 trillion, will launch its in-development crypto trading platform, quote, within weeks, reports Bloomberg. Damn it. Let's see if Bloomberg will actually let us read it. Yeah, okay. So we'll give it to you from the original source, Bloomberg. Fidelity will offer cryptocurrency trading within a few weeks. This is by Matthew Leasing, so yes, penis. This was authored May 6, 2019 at 1 a.m. PDT. Continuing. Fidelity Investments, which began a custody service to store Bitcoin earlier this year, will buy and sell the world's most popular digital asset for institutional customers within a few weeks, according to a person familiar with the matter. The Boston-based firm, one of the largest asset managers in the world, created Fidelity Digital Assets in October in a bet that Wall Street's nascent appetite for trading and safeguarding digital currencies will grow. It also puts Fidelity a step ahead of its top competitors that have mostly stayed on the sidelines so far. The firm said in October that it would offer over-the-counter trade execution and order routing for Bitcoin early this year. Fidelity would join brokerages E-Trade Financial Group and Robinhood in offering cryptocurrency trading to clients, though Fidelity is only targeting institutional customers and not retail investors like E-Trade and Robinhood, said the person, who asked not to be named, discussing private matters. A study released by Fidelity on May 2nd found that 47% of institutional investors think digital assets are worth investing in. Quote, "We currently have a select set of clients we're supporting on our platform," Fidelity spokesperson Arlene Roberts said in an email. Quote, "We will continue to roll out our services over the coming weeks and months based on our clients' needs, jurisdictions, and other factors. Currently, our service offering is focused only on Bitcoin." According to the survey, which questioned 441 institutional investors from November to February, 72% prefer to buy investment products that hold digital assets, while 57% chose to buy them directly. The hurdle to make crypto appeal to more mainstream investors is that it continues to be plagued with fraud, theft, and regulatory infractions. The latest case involves New York Attorney General accusing Bitfinex, one of the largest Bitcoin exchanges, of hiding the loss of about $850 million in client and corporate cash. Vancouver-based Quadriga Fintech Solutions Corp., which is going through bankruptcy in Canada, owes 115,000 clients about $193 million in cryptocurrencies and cash after the death of its founder, Gary Cotton, last year. Bitcoin has jumped more than 50% this year, extending the wild price swings that have attracted many individual investors to the mostly unregulated coin. The original digital currency gained widespread notoriety when it surged 1,400% in 2017 before tumbling 74% last year. Yeah. I think Fidelity is going to continue to have the biggest issue that any of these guys have. They are regulated. They are paying for licenses. They are paying for insurance. They are paying for regulatory compliance officers. They are paying for reporting. They're having to send people to Washington to stand in front of Congress and all that other bullshit that we don't have to do. Miners don't do that. Miners don't have to pay any of that bullshit because their job is not to be a custodian of your funds. They are to be the dutiful stewards and maintainers and producers of the Bitcoin blockchain and other cryptocurrency blockchains. But in this case, Fidelity wants to act as a third-party intermediary for a currency that does not need third-party intermediaries and can be as easily transacted, actually much easier transacted than any other digital form of money on the planet, except for, of course, other cryptocurrencies. And again, this is one of those mistakes that you can make in your judgment with regard to how Bitcoin is supposed to work and who it should serve and what traders should be involved and how they should be involved and so on and so forth. There is nothing you can give to an institutional investor that they themselves investing in some mining couldn't actually achieve at a much more efficient rate. There is nothing you can offer them. You can't offer them any more security. You can't offer them any more certainty over the solvency of their funds or the presence of their funds or the existence of their funds or who has their funds. You can't offer them anything better than that. And because you can't, you're going to lose to it. You're going to lose to a bunch of dorm room kids that are mining away into the night right now. and a bunch of hash farm operators out in China and Canada and elsewhere. You're going to lose to them because they can do what you can do except better. And I can almost guarantee you that at this point, the institutional investors that are smart, that understand what the fuck they're even doing here in crypto, they're already invested in mining. Fidelity is invested in mining. And it's really funny because they have like the most to say with regard to the how should I say it, the efficiency of mining. And it's funny because they probably didn't even do it that well. Meaning they didn't set it up as efficiently as possible, and so they got less than par results. But anyway, speaking to that point right there, I got this article here on Coindesk.com. Bitcoin miners send message at Fidelity. We run on clean energy, not dirty coal. This is by Anna Bedakova. So no penis. And this is authored May 7th, 2019. So apparently Anna is a time traveler. Thank you, Anna, for bringing this from the future. Bitcoin miners made the case for their industry as a driver of clean energy adoption rather than the ecological disaster depicted by critics at Fidelity's mining summit on Friday. The venue for the day-long event was as notable as the talks. The Fidelity Center for Applied Technology and R&D division that has dabbed in Bitcoin mining hosted the conference at the financial service giant's global headquarters in Boston. Fidelity has embraced crypto markets more than most incumbents. This year it launched Fidelity Digital Asset Services, which handles custody of Bitcoin for institutional clients and is expected to be rolling out trading in the coming weeks. But aside from welcoming the 300 or so attendees and a brief overview of the mining industry by Jurika Bolovic, innovation manager at Fidelity Labs, a different R&D unit, Fidelity mostly ceded the stage to guest speakers. In their presentations, these miners and others sought to disprove the popular perception that the copious amount of electricity devoted to securing the Bitcoin network, 0.26 of world consumption according to Digiconomist, is an environmental threat. Miners are constantly searching for cheaper energy, and this is why they will be the catalyst for renewable power development in the near future, said John Belizaire, CEO of Soluna. His company is building a large wind power generating farm in Morocco. The primary consumer of that energy will be Soluna's miners, but the rest will go to the country's electricity grid, Belizaire said. Bitcoin is at the center of the next great infrastructure that we've never seen before. We're going to go places that have incredible renewable energy sites, he said, predicting that the industry's image will change as a result. Quote, in a decade, we will start referring to Bitcoin completely differently. Mining will help monetize the building of global computation networks around the globe, as well as new renewable power sites, he said. And, unlike in the past, it will not require government subsidies. Rivers, not coal. The widespread notion that, quote, Bitcoin is mainly mined with dirty Chinese coal is not true, said Chris Bendixson, the head of CoinShares research department. His team has recently conducted research on the many regions and energy sources for mining. Miners are located mostly in mountainous regions with big rivers and a high share of renewable power in the overall energy mix. CoinShares found 48% of all global mining happens in the Chinese province of Sichuan, where renewable energy is prevalent, 90% of the overall energy mix, and 12% takes in other parts of China that together get around half of their energy from renewables. Another 35% of mining is done in various parts of the Western world, including British Columbia and Quebec in Canada, Washington State in the U.S., and Ireland. The rest of the world is producing the remaining 5%, the report says. Most of these places have high shares of renewable, especially hydro-generated energy, in their power generation mix. In addition, a lot of hydropower in the world is, quote, heavily underutilized, Bendixson says. As hydropower dams are built, the regions that have suitable landscapes and big rivers, but are not necessarily heavily populated, miners can put this capacity to good use, he said. Asked how the data about miners' concentration was gathered, Bendixson acknowledged that it mostly comes from the miners themselves. Quote, "We just traveled the entire internet, including forums of miners, and we talked to miners themselves and read news articles," he told CoinDesk. While miners' communities, for example, in China, might be very insular and uninterested in what the West thinks and knows of them, they still willingly answered questions, Bendixson said. Catching the waste. Another source of readily available cheap energy can be the natural gas released during oil mining, so-called associated gas, said Stephen Barbour, president of Upstream Data. Oil companies need to get rid of the gas, which they aren't using, so they burn it. As a result, 140 billion cubic meters of gas are wasted every year, according to General Electric's data. Barbour said his company developed a system that captures gas at an oil drilling site, transforms it into energy, and then uses it for Bitcoin mining. According to him, a prototype setup on one such site in Canada has already helped to reduce carbon emissions there by over 10,000 tons in a year. Quote, "It's been mining since 2017 and it's been running on vent gas," Barbour told CoinDesk. In the prototype phase, using a 45 kilowatt power plant and an Antminer S9 mining machines manufactured by Bitmain, the system mined around 20 bitcoins over the past 2 years. Upstream focuses mostly on oil producers in the Canadian provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, which are rich in oil. There are also plans for Texas, Barbour said. A small oil drilling company, the name of which he said he couldn't disclose, purchased a data mining center for an unfruitful drilling site. Quote, "A company was searching for oil. It didn't find any. They did find a lot of gas, but the gas is worthless. You can't sell it to anyone in Texas right now, so they can either abandon the well and lose the money, or they can invest in Bitcoin mining," Barbour said. But more often, quote, "oil companies are a bit shy of buying Bitcoin mining facilities," he added. However, associated gas is a liability for them, so helping them to get rid of it by mining is actually a service for which oil companies might let miners on their territory for free, he said. None of this is to say protecting the environment is Bitcoin miners' top motivation. Quote, "They probably don't care at all," Bendixson said. However, mining Bitcoin on fossil fuels is just too expensive, he added, concluding, "Mining is a relentless driver to lowest global energy prices." Damn Skippy. I've said this a million times that Bitcoin provides an incentive that previously did not exist to specifically shoot for efficiency. Efficiency means a reduction in cost, a reduction in waste, a reduction in time. And Bitcoin incentivizes it by giving us a direct monetary outlet to facilitate that towards. One that is not only cheaper and better than any current existing system, but is also global. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening. And as far as our last dance is concerned, I think this is it right here. Objection overruled by Exodus here on Coin Metal. Thank you again. Y'all have an excellent evening.